The first time she asked him, the world around Armin Qureshi felt like it had already collapsed. It was one of those evenings when exhaustion clung to him like a second skin, when even the air inside the small auto repair shop felt heavy with burnt oil and unpaid bills. His hands were stained with grease, his back ached from bending over engines all day, and his thoughts were tangled with worries he never spoke aloud. Outside, the sky burned with the fading colors of sunset, but Armin barely noticed. He was too busy calculating how to stretch what little money he had left until the end of the month, too consumed by the silent fear that he might be failing the one person who depended on him most, his 6-year-old daughter, Meher. Life had not been kind to Armin. A widower before 30, he had learned grief in its most merciless form. His wife's sudden illness had torn through their world like a storm, leaving him with a child who still asked questions he could never answer, and a heart that never fully healed. Every morning since then had been a battle between despair and responsibility. He had no luxury of breaking down, no time to indulge in sorrow. There was always rent to pay, school fees to manage, groceries to buy. So he worked, he endured, he survived. That day had been particularly cruel. A major client had delayed payment again, and the landlord had called with a warning disguised as politeness. By the time Armin stepped out from beneath the hood of a car, wiping sweat from his brow, he felt like a man standing at the edge of an invisible cliff. And then she walked in. She didn't belong there, not in any obvious way. The repair shop was a place of noise, metal, and worn-out patience. Yet she entered like a quiet interruption, composed, graceful, almost out of place in her simple navy sweater and understated elegance. Her name, as Armin would later learn, was Sarah Malik. But in that moment, she was simply a stranger, with observant eyes and a presence that shifted the atmosphere of the room. She wasn't like the usual customers. There was no impatience, no arrogance, no air of superiority. She watched him work with a curious stillness, as though she were trying to understand something beyond the mechanics of machines. Armin, too tired to wonder why, focused on diagnosing the issue with her car. He spoke little, explained only what was necessary, and kept his distance as he always did. But fate has a peculiar way of bending ordinary moments into turning points. As Armin handed her the service receipt, bracing himself for the usual negotiation or complaint, Sarah looked at him with an expression he could not immediately read. It wasn't pity. It wasn't flirtation. It was something gentler, something almost disarming. And then, with a calmness that caught him completely off guard, she asked him a question that would echo in his mind long after she left. She asked if he would be her date. For a second, Armin thought he had misheard. His world consisted of broken engines, overdue payments, and bedtime stories told through fatigue. Romance, invitations, and unexpected possibilities were things that belonged to other people's lives. He stared at her, confused, uncertain whether this was some kind of joke or misunderstanding. If you believe that kindness, destiny, and second chances still exist in this world, take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Armin's first instinct was to refuse, not out of arrogance, but out of disbelief and a deep-rooted sense of unworthiness. He was a struggling mechanic, a single father whose entire universe revolved around a little girl waiting at home. What could a woman like her possibly see in someone like him? Yet there was something sincere in Sarah's demeanor, something that lacked mockery or hidden motive. Against his better judgment, and perhaps against the heavy voice of his own doubts, he agreed. The evening of their date arrived like a quiet test of courage. Armin wore the only neatly pressed shirt he owned, feeling awkward and painfully aware of the gap between his modest reality and whatever world Sarah came from. The restaurant she chose was simple, yet tasteful, the kind of place where soft lights and gentle music made people forget their troubles, if only briefly. Armin expected discomfort, but instead found an unexpected ease. Syra spoke with warmth, listened with genuine interest, and never once made him feel small. She asked about his life, his work, his daughter. And though Armin was a man of few words, he found himself sharing pieces of a story he rarely told. The loss of his wife, the sleepless nights, the relentless determination to give Meher a better future. Something changed that night. Not dramatically, not in a way that could be easily explained, but subtly, like the first crack of light after a long darkness. For the first time in years, Armin felt seen, not as a struggling mechanic or a tired father, but as a human being whose pain and perseverance mattered. What Armin did not know, what he could not have imagined, was that Syra Malik was no ordinary woman. Behind her simplicity, behind the quiet grace she carried, was a reality far removed from his own. Syra was a powerful, highly respected CEO, the head of a rapidly growing technology firm worth millions. Her days were filled with board meetings, strategic decisions, and a level of influence that shaped industries. She lived in a world of glass towers, private chauffeurs, and relentless expectations. Yet none of that had defined her the day she walked into his repair shop. Weeks passed, and their connection deepened in ways Armin had never anticipated. Syra became a gentle presence in his and Meher's life. She visited without extravagance, played with Meher without pretense, and brought a kind of calm joy that the small apartment had not known in years. Armin remained unaware of her true identity, believing her to be a professional with a comfortable but ordinary life. Until the day truth arrived uninvited. It happened by accident, as most revelations do. A television news segment flickered in the background while Armin prepared dinner. Meher, absorbed in her drawings, barely noticed. But Armin froze when he saw a familiar face on the screen. Syra, poised and confident, speaking at a corporate event, introduced as one of the country's most influential business leaders. The shock was overwhelming. A flood of emotions surged through him: disbelief, embarrassment, a sudden awareness of the invisible line between their worlds. He felt foolish for not knowing, wounded by the fear that he had been an object of curiosity or charity. But Sarah's response, when confronted, dismantled every doubt. There was no defensiveness, no condescension, only honesty. She explained that her silence had not been deception, but a desperate attempt to be known without the weight of her title. In Armin's presence, she had found something rare: authenticity, humility, a life untouched by the constant calculations of power and status. Armin struggled with the revelation. Pride and insecurity wrestled within him. He questioned whether he could ever truly belong beside someone so vastly different in circumstance. He feared being judged, pitied, or misunderstood. Yet through it all, Syra remained unwavering, not in grand gestures, but in quiet consistency. She did not try to change him. She did not attempt to rescue him. Instead, she respected him. Gradually, Armin understood that love does not measure worth through wealth, nor dignity through status. He saw that Syra's admiration for him was rooted not in novelty, but in the strength of his character. His devotion as a father, his resilience, his quiet integrity. Together, they began to bridge the distance between their worlds, not by erasing differences, but by honoring them. Armin continued his work, eventually expanding his small repair shop with Syra's guidance, but never her interference. Meher flourished under the warmth of a family slowly rebuilding itself. And Syra, despite her towering success, discovered a deeper fulfillment in the ordinary rhythms of shared meals, laughter, and unguarded affection. Their journey was not free of challenges. Society whispered. Assumptions were made. There were moments of doubt, moments when Armin's insecurities resurfaced, or Syra's demanding career threatened to pull her away. But what sustained them was not perfection, but patience, the willingness to understand, to forgive, to grow. Because real love is rarely cinematic in the way stories portray. It is built quietly, through choice after choice, day after day. And before we reach the ending of this story, write this in the comments. True love sees the heart, not the status. In the end, Armand's life did not transform into a fantasy of luxury and effortless happiness. It became something far more meaningful. He found companionship where he expected loneliness, respect where he feared judgment, and hope where he had once known only survival. Syra, the wealthy CEO who could command boardrooms and shape markets, found her greatest victory not in business, but in vulnerability, in loving and being loved without masks. If this story touched your heart even a little, take a moment to like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who still believes in miracles, kindness, and unexpected love. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary stories begin in the most ordinary places. A small repair shop, a tired single father, and a simple question that changed everything.